So welcome all to a presentation today in the Aquarian Almanac series on Gautama Buddha. And I will read the quote for the week in this almanac, and it's from Hermes. And it says, Gautama Buddha regarded the production of a permanent change in the life of an individual as the highest magic. So we'll see if we can learn about this kind of remarkable revolution in people's lives. And today we are fortunate to hear from Philip D'Arbanville, and he's thought about all things Buddhist and all things theosophical for many years. He came into theosophy in the 70s, should I say?
Yeah, 1975.
Wow, really? That's a powerful time. And so he's part of what I call the Joe Pope diaspora. I don't know if that's correct or not, but there, I meet people and, oh, really? Were you from New York? And pretty soon there's something about Joe Pope, and I felt it was a really inspiring time. And I hear about these things, so it just seems that it's quite a wonderful thing. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of continuity, last week we heard a wonderful presentation on, it was for the week of the Pentecost, and our speaker took us on a deep journey into the Pistis Sophia. So, and next week, our speaker, speaking of Kurt Fulkent, we will be fortunate enough to hear from him on the enigmatic and mysterious subject of reincarnation and silence. So we're very much looking forward to that. And oh, speaking of Kurt, could you tell us about this wonderful, is it a website that you set up?
No, it's just it's a YouTube channel. So I put the link in the chat for those that can access that from the menu at the bottom. There's just a link, and if you go to YouTube and you just type in Eternal Pilgrim, or if you follow that link, it brings up all of the videos, all of the recordings of everything we've done so far in this Almanac series. And so it's something that I thought we could have one central place to go ahead and maintain access to all of this stuff, to go back and look at them and listen to them again, and to share with anybody else that we think might be interested.
Well, Kurt, what you're doing is a real service, because I've talked to more than one person who comes to these, and they said that every time they miss one, they're really happy because they're able to go back and look it up and not really miss out after all. So really appreciate you doing that. So our speaker today has volunteered to tell us about Gautama Buddha, and he's going to bring in elements of theosophy and elements of Buddhism. And without further ado, Philip D'Arbanville.
Well, thank you. And honored to be here, and so glad to share at this time with so many fellow students. And of course, Gautama Buddha is incredible subject matter at any time. So it's been very much a delight to look into more of insightfully his teachings and impact on the world. There are many who say theosophy, as presented by H.P. Blavatsky, is akin to Mahayana Buddhism. And there are different schools of Buddhist thought that have been developed throughout the centuries. So we'll go into some of that, but some of the current Buddhist teachers that are inspiring, of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we're pretty much all familiar with, Tibetan Buddhists. Then there's another one that's really powerful, and we love Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, who has a center called Plum Village, France, and also Deer Park in San Diego. So he's a great soul. We've had the pleasure to walk with, and he has some offerings towards giving presentation and honoring the spirit in us all. So I am going to provide an example of that presentation opening with the Tibetan Gong and a sharing from him that I think is a great way to begin. So. So we bring the breath into the body, breathing in, peace, breathing out, love. And we bring the mind in with the breath to the body. So we're present and not in the future, if any thoughts, not in the past, of any memories, but just breathe in, peace, breathe out, love. And he likes to say, now we're present to create in the moment this feeling. In gratitude, we offer this to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful efforts, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we all and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. It's a nice way to begin for recognizing the subject of Gautama Buddha. You see this in a lot of traditions that, I don't know if it's proper to call it a call to arms, but to awaken us to attention of this is a spiritual matter of importance and attention of the highest, deepest order is worthy of the moment for us. So in the ancient Jewish tradition, you have the shofar, we have the longhorns, we have all kinds of instruments in Tibetan Buddhism. In theosophy, we shy away from display, if you will, of any particular sect or practice that is of a religious, if you will, nature. And there's reasoning behind that, because often what happens with practice can be a dogmatic evolution, because it becomes an ingrained habit, and and that then can be easily done without the real call to attention. So our call to attention in theosophy is, I like to think of it like that, the three fundamentals. What Buddha did is amazing. And you look at the time, and you had mentioned, well, this is an important cycle. And 1975 was a pregnant cycle. And the time of Gautama Buddha, if you look at it, about 556 BC, that 6th century, it takes about 2,500 years, does it not, for our whole sky above us that we see from the point of view of the Earth to make a full circle of 360 degrees. And it's been about that long, huh? It's like 2021 now, and Buddha, 500, we're looking at a 2,500 year cycle. And the influence of Buddhism and his teachings has only grown. And it's amazing because, he was said to be, a prince, and his father had more or less a palace. And early on, a wise man said, well, this son of yours, he's going to be a big deal, and he could be a great warrior. He could be, a great spiritual teacher, he could be a great king, So of course his father wanted him to be a big, great king, follow him, and take the banner forward for the family. And so he more or less locked him up, didn't let him out of the gates of the palace grounds. Finally, when he was about 16, between 16 and 20, it said, he got to go out in a coach with the driver, and all this was pre-orchestrated so that there would be nothing on the streets or anything that was out of order or didn't look all buttoned up and perfect. So he would go out, come back in, and be satisfied. Lo and behold, he's out, and he looks over, and what snuck into the picture was a very old man, and not looking well. And that caught his attention because he'd never seen anything like that. He didn't know. All he saw was cheery, happy people, and no one probably over the age of 30. So he was in shock. And he went back and said, what's that happened to that person? He says, well, that's what happens to all of us. Eventually, bodies grow old, and then we eventually, pass on. And he was just couldn't believe it. So he couldn't resist getting out. It said he dressed as a commoner and went outside, and he ran into, people who were suffering in difficult straits and not well. And he saw that there was a kind of impoverished community around him. And this threw him into, it said, deep despair. And he was determined to understand why on earth everyone couldn't have everything the way he had it, and what was this discrepancy. So he took on teachers and wanted to learn from them, and he studied meditation, practiced meditation. Soon the teachers became his disciples because he was progressed at such a rapid rate, really beyond them all, that they recognized him as a very special being in their midst. And it said at age 35, so under the Bodhi tree, he experienced on this plane of consciousness full enlightenment. All his past lives were revealed to him. All his collective karma was unfolded before him and resolved. And his insight that came, he gifted out as a talk to his now larger group of disciples as the Four Noble Truths. And he said that the first truth of life is suffering. We all suffer. And if that's not enough of a bitter pill to swallow, recognition of the second truth, more or less, is that we suffer because of our ignorance. And the origin of this, without going too much into Sanskrit, it does come, they say tana. Tana is thirst. Thirst is desire. Desire leads to attachment. So the whole understanding of our presence itself creating thirst, wanting. You reach for your mother's milk. It's you reach for air. You come out of the birth canal, and what do? And then someone pats your back, and you scream and you cry, and you're born, and everyone claps. And they say, "Welcome to the Vale of Tears," and we don't know what that means at first, but here we are, and we're needy from the get-go. So we need the milk, we need the food, we need the shelter, we need the sustenance, we need touch. Human touch, or even animal touch has been shown, because some babies in the wilderness have been adopted by animals and they've done okay, they've survived. So, but if they're left alone and untouched, they shrivel and leave the mortal frame. So we, if you want to say that's love in a certain basic fundamental concept of the beginning of communication, of feeling, we need love. And so in theosophy, there's also this absolute first fundamental saying that, because it's always the question, right? Well, where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? And the first fundamental postulates, we don't know that answer. But great beings who have delved into these seemingly unknowable spheres of meta reality, they've told us some interesting things coming back from their meta, and as close as we can get to it, that our consciousness here can understand is desire first arose in itself. The desire first arose in itself to know itself. Now, we have this thirst, and What happens is the attachment to the desire. But Buddha says there's hope. He says there's hope that you can overcome this desire nature that's creating all these attachments and problems and keeping you on this wheel, that you can actually follow an eightfold path as a human being and a mind being. And if you have right view, right resolve, right speech, right conduct or action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right samadhi, really, which is the meditation whereby we have a concentration, a one-pointedness of the mind, and insight. So the power of perceptions. And we know that right thought, right action, right speech, these are fundamental to our progress for self-expression in the world with awareness and self-examination in the world. So it is a path that Theosophy expresses quite beautifully with the basic fundamentals. Because in understanding that, you know, we may come from a mystery to a certain degree, but there is a great evolutionary manifestation that we can understand. And we're a microcosm of this macrocosm. So by looking within, we can know a reflection of the majesty of the truth of that greater reality. And we have being and beingness and the awareness of our consciousness. So understanding the laws of nature and the second fundamental, or it's a second aspect of this one truth, cycles and periodicity, the way that manifestation expresses itself, evolves itself, and the way we come into our reality. It's actually a gift to understand the laws, so to speak, of nature, and cause and effect, karma, manifests on every plane and every being. The minute you have manifestation, consciousness, we are a reflective being, right? So one way of looking at this is, as the existentialists put it, you know, you are aware of you watching yourself. we often look in the mirror and we see a reflection of ourselves back at ourselves, looking at ourselves. Similarly, when we go into a quiet reflection moment, we're looking at ourselves, and we may be seeking to understand something. And there you have the dynamic. The awareness of the dynamic allows us to stay in the awareness as the watcher, while we're also acting, the actor. Much like the paradigm of an actor on stage, fully invested in the role, fully saying the lines of the character, believing, if it's a good actor, believing every scintilla of the emotional content and relationship with the other, not shedding one moment usually of awareness towards the audience. That's said to be the fourth wall. And the audience believes it looks at this panorama of activity and is getting to peer in to a truth in the moment privately. Audience sits in the dark quietly and almost peers at the scene taking place. Yet the actor on stage is fully well aware of the fact that the audience is there, that this is a theater, that he or she is an actor, and there's a chosen reality to the moment, but it's not a super reality of absolute significance, because everyone takes their makeup off at the end of the play and they go and their audience gets up, the lights come on, and it's been a great performance. And you have a meta reality that's been surrounding that reality the whole time, but we chose to not focus on it. We focused in a particular way with the concentration and will that led everybody to be spellbound in the moment by whatever was taking place on stage between these characters. Well, that pretty much describes our actual reality, because the loss of concentration and awareness of this relationship with our truth in the moment, that's really what gets us wrapped up in the cause and effect unconsciously. We create actions, and this is where meditation is a keynote, and it's really the third most important realm that Buddha teaches and Theosophy recommends. And if you take Patanjali's yoga aphorisms and we study that in Theosophy, and you practice with that, between that and the voice and the silence, I don't think you need anything more. It's you have the heart doctrine and you have the practice, and the rest is on us. Then you can open the secret doctrine and make sense of it. Or they say the mind's purpose is to make sense of nonsense. So there's a joy in that, and the give and take of our reality is, if we're going to progress in our soul evolution, we don't want to be too attached to anything, and yet love everything in a sense. In the application of the Eightfold Path, it goes into detail. And if you study Buddhism, you know, each of these points lead to insights into the full nature of ourselves and the universe. And you have then, you know, like right conduct, of course, no killing or injury, no taking what is not given, no sexual acts, no material desires. Well, that brings up a lot of questions, you know, for, well, no material desires. Like we said in the beginning, we would die without shelter, without food. What is material? And the discernment becomes essential in application of the understanding of the teachings. And this is something that Theosophy teaches in the moral ethical perceptions that and the heart doctrine. Through application, we understand, well, we make mistakes, we have pain and suffering, and then we reflect, we hopefully learn some lessons, and we don't make the same mistakes. So there's a learning curve with the right toolkit. And that's what's so valuable with Buddhist teachings and the path, and how Theosophy has laid it out for us in a very applicable manner that makes sense. You have cause and effect on every level of action. And, you know, the Hermetic saying, sow a thought, reap an act, sow an act, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, sow a character, reap a destiny, right? So we're first step is awareness of our predicament, if you will. And then through meditation, we develop the strengthening of position of the watcher. And we like to present the idea theosophically of three practices. You can sit and meditate, right? And hold that space of concentration and breath and inward, and dwell in the deepest reality that one can summon in the moment. And yet not have any desire to reach a state of consciousness in particular. So how does one calibrate that kind of experiential directive? Discernment. We have a discerning faculty within us in mind. And it's said, you know, mind is dual. When we come into incarnation, we come out of big mind, if you will, and we come into the particular. And the particular exhibits mind based on survival, mind based on relationships, mind based on this thirst. Even the thirst for growth is an attachment. All of these have karmic significance and envelop us in a web of mind-body elements. And Theosophy explains this circus, if you will, as skandhas, life forms. And we speak of the most fundamental life forms as elemental or elementals. And because then Theosophy sets forward 7 planes of consciousness, 7 layers of mind-body relationship, 7-fold nature to man. Being first, that we have the absolute aspect of our nature in the universe, and we have spirit as human beings. Spirit's common to all and one with all. So the basis of our fundamental unity is the fact that our core principle, if you will, spirit, is one. The power of the sun doesn't change when it's reflected through a banana tree or reflected through a pineapple tree. They express that energy differently, quite differently. And if it hits a magnifying glass, then the experience is something else yet again, hopefully safe. So spirit pervades the manifest universe, and it's our core principle. And the universal soul matrix, said to be the Buddhic nature, interestingly enough, that collective consciousness holds all of manifestation from time immemorial in its potential view. And according to cycles and periodicity, our manifestation as a race of human beings on a planet going through cycles, through 7 great rounds and races, not to be confused with races of the colors of skins, but races of magnitude of development for the progression of the soul through the vehicle. So naturally, we have different body types, through different cycles, depending on the lessons and the karma and what needs to be achieved collectively through that cycle. And now it's said we're in a great 4th round. In this 4th round, again, within the round, you have 7 cyclic periods of development, and we're in the 5th, it's said, right now, as a humanity on planet Earth, all of us together. And we're approaching, within that 5th cycle, the 6th, touching upon it, which, the 4th relates again to our desire nature, our passions and desires body, and this 7-fold nature from below. You have the physical body. Well, we all have physical bodies. So again, they look different, they act differently, they might, but they all have the same qualities, fundamental qualities. They all need food, they all breathe oxygen, They all have like 98% water. And these are qualities of corporeal bodies, reality of it. We all have it in common. So like spirit, we're all one. We all have the physical body of some shape, type, and function is primarily the same. We have, it said, an electromagnetic pattern body. That's the energy, electrical and magnetic. You think about that, upon which the physical atoms, if you will, come together and form the skeletal, the neural organs, the blood, tissues, the brain, all of that according to universal design and karmic impression. So the individual carries an impress that brings upon itself, through the creation of the energy fusion, a particular kind of body. So we begin to have differentiation among us, and we have the life force is broken out as a separate part of our nature. Karmically, that might be that, you know, you're that woman in South Carolina, Greensboro. She 107 years old, tremendous vitality, you know. That's her life force karma, you know. How she earned that, we don't know. Previous lives, what eating an onion a day, we don't know. But you know, some people, you know, we're lucky we last, you know, 50 years, you know. It's different energy fields karmically. The desire nature fuses with the lower mind nature, creating this, what we know as personality makeup. And depending on our own genetic makeup, depending on our faculties, depending on our family makeup, depending on our community, the whole universe around us that interacts a certain way, culture around us, that all is our individual karma on the one hand. It's our family karma on the other hand. It's our collective karma as human beings on planet Earth on the other hand. And we have a share in it all. We have a response ability to every part of that and not separate from any of it. So when we look at discernment as a practice and meditation, we're really asking ourselves to know what's going on. And one of the keys to that is not judging and not being attached to the duality before us. Because there's duality in everything that we look at objectively. To get caught up in the duality loses our perspective as the watcher. And when we lose our perspective as the watcher, guess what happens? Our discernment might not be so great, right? So this is a great stepping stone program that Buddha laid out, which is extremely practical if applied. And the insight into the Eightfold Path becomes another 5 form that we started to touch upon a little bit when we mentioned skandhas and elementals, right? Because he says, well, these 5 aggregates are important to understand for true discernment. Form, matter, material form. Buddhist texts state rupa of any person, sentient being, an object to be composed of 4 basic elements or forces: earth, solidity; water, cohesion; fire, heat; and wind, motion. So in discerning forms, we might look deeply in our own selves and awareness of our own forms, from the body to the forms of our thoughts to the forms of our dreams. Because we can all become lucid dreamers and active participants in the reality that pervades before the watcher in our dream states, as well as in our so-called waking states. And it's just a matter of us being aware of the possibility, owning our reality, and taking charge. So the will is an important part of our nature. It's said will is spirit in action. So we ought not to allow some other driver to be running the chariot of our being. We need to put ourselves in the driver's seat and take full responsibility and have as complete awareness at any given time that we can. Muster up the courage, the heart to reach for our true destiny. Because we are all, look within, thou art Buddha. Buddha, I believe, didn't want us to study him as separate from ourselves. The insights he's gleaned, he said that Buddha was a 6th rounder. We spoke a little bit about rounds and races, and just one sidereal twist of the heavens above us. It's said that each of these ages has an estimated time frame in the evolution from the gold, silver, bronze, iron, right? Iron that we're in now, the Iron Age, so-called Dark Ages. It's the densest, it's the fastest, it's in a certain respect, the least forgiving and the cruelest. 432,000 years, the Krishna coming, 5,000 year cycle, the Buddha coming, these great teachers of humanity are spread throughout all our cycles and all our cultures, and all our humanities have these saviors in respect who give us the insights gleaned through millenniums of experience. And it's there for the taking, the fruit. We're able to take it and digest it to the best of our ability. And that's why these are such great moments to be able to come together in the midst of not being able to come together. It's a silver lining, the Zoom reality, because here we are, we're all able to share. Soon we'll have questions and answers and more questions and insights and sharing. And that's the Sangha. that really is the spirit of the collective group. And we don't progress so well alone. As a matter of fact, it's said the esoteric path for sure is a dangerous one to take on a solo journey. And you'll see that every great teacher is always with a group. There's always a group consciousness partaking of it. And it's a support on many, many different levels that allows us to be there for each other without even speaking. It's about presence itself with the spirit of the intention collectively being one. So, if your intention is to put the three fundamental principles into practical application, and look at the third fundamental and the evolution of life through all forms, from below the mineral, through the plant, through the animal, through the human, through the angels, through the meta gods, and then meta universes beyond comprehension. If we're going to go into all of that insight and makes common sense of it, the group mind's going to help us, really is. And that's just form. Then you have sensation is another aggregate. So it's either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, the feeling. And we can go into each of these a lot. I'm just going to touch on them all. Perception. Perception is said sensory and mental process that registers, recognizes, and labels. So this is part of the mind that's aware of all the five senses and really knows the world around us, and without which we'd be hard pressed to do anything. Then the fourth is mental formations. And this is separated out, interestingly enough, in its own category, describing constructing activities, conditioned things, volition, which I think of as will, right? Willpower, karmic activities, all types of mental imprints and conditioning triggered by an object. Concludes any process that makes a person initiate action or act. Mental formations. So in meditation, oftentimes the teacher will say, well, what do I do? I sit down and meditate and all this stuff comes up in my mind and, all these images and I don't know what to do. It's, I don't think I'm meditating well. And you say, well, teacher's apt to recommend breathing, watching, observing without reaction, and full acceptance with perhaps a seed meditation technique. And if you look at Patanjali's yoga aphorisms, he goes through all the different levels of meditation and all the different techniques that can be employed to reach union with higher consciousness, with our own Buddhi Atma, mind consciousness. And this doesn't need to be arduous. We're apt to make things feel like, oh my God, I got this mountain to climb and a hill and I got to do it. And it's really tough. And well, one day it might be like that. Another day, you might sit, flip the switch, and be in universal consciousness experience. and maybe you can't bring it back in the body. Maybe it only lasts for a fraction of a second. We don't know. But like intuition that sparks through the mind, if we're guiding ourselves and yearning for the truth of our higher nature to be one with our reality, it's going to happen in different ways at different times. And all of nature will give us endless opportunities to interact in such a way that will grow into full conscious awareness. So it's nothing is separate. All of life is always listening, and we're part of that parade. Not only are we part of it, but we are the engine of mind consciousness collectively for our planet. Our planet's a body, it's a form, has a life force, has all the elements that we just went through, the 7 elements. And we're part and parcel of the mind aspect of Earth itself. So, are we giving the Earth a headache? Causing volcanoes, earthquakes, mucho problemos? Yes, we are. And we have to get woken up by 18-year-olds who tell us how to straighten up our act collectively and heal the environment and take responsibility and work together in harmony and not have war and have peace and not pollute. And so we learn over and over again till we get it, these lessons, and how we can make unique application, because creatively it's all doable. And amazing things happen because of positive mental formations. Then you have consciousness as the 5th. And that's really awareness, which we've touched on, and discrimination of its components and aspects. Goes into 6 types, and Buddhist literature gets into the weeds on a lot of things. As much as the secret doctrine might challenge us when we read it, Buddhist literature on the philosophies and the debates between the different schools are endless, seemingly endless, and you can get into all of them. But cognizance is this one primary element of consciousness, that which discerns. And Adidhamma said a series of rapidly changing, interconnected, discrete acts of cognizance. That's another aspect of consciousness. So Theosophy is wonderful in this respect, because what do you have HPB constantly doing for us and showing us how to train our minds to do? Analogy and correspondence. And she does it in all realms, intermixing science with history, with religion, with philosophy, and it just goes making connection after connection after connection after connection, and showing the universal and the particular ad infinitum, and what that does for us. And we give thanks to her. Trains us on how to create a symphony of spiritual, universal mind application awareness, to glean understanding of our true natures and the world around us. It's quite a gift, as Buddha put forward too. And then Mahayana sources, it's the base. Consciousness is the base of all experience. So there is an aspect to some schools, and we touched on it a little bit, and maybe I'll because the voice of the silence we mentioned, and the heart doctrine is part of this, but the head is not left ever behind. So, you have these paramitras and of perfection. You have in the 7 portals spoken of in the voice, and it's interesting to correlate them to what we've just reviewed in the Buddhist approach, because he says, 1, dana, the key of charity and love immortal. Now, let's make note before we go on to the rest that at this stage of meditation, insight, and practice, it's said that the student has a choice. And there's no judgment, interestingly enough. And we're apt to make judgment. And we have to look at ourselves when we do that and ask why. Why is it necessary that I, Philip, make a judgment about the I doctrine and the heart doctrine when it says both are acceptable paths? Who am I to judge? Maybe Einstein took that path, the I doctrine. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's certainly nothing derogatory about that. Without the great minds, we wouldn't have a lineage. We wouldn't be talking about the debates of Buddhism and all of the texts. Before there was writing, everyone memorized everything. It was all oral transmission. You need a really, really developed I doctrine mind to be able to verbally gift the secret doctrine. Right? Now, Theosophy has always said, to give recognition to the masters of wisdom, and there are 2 masters in particular who were responsible in the last cycle for really gifting forward the teachings for this new cycle. And H.P. Blavatsky was chosen to give that to us. And that's a big deal. I mean, that's a huge deal because, first of all, she's a woman. So that's revolutionary in and of itself. There are debates to this day in the Buddhist tradition where there are groups that insist the female body is not as developed, that being born in a female body actually is a result of less than positive karma. I mean, can you imagine in this day and age now we have a feminine revolution of awareness in our culture and around the world. And that's got to be considered a limited view. And we leave it at that. And what she accomplished in the 1800s around the planet with gifting the teachings, that's just a miracle. So from her, we have the voice of the silence, and this path depicted with starting with Dana, the key of charity and love immortal, Shila, the key of harmony in word and act, the key that counterbalances the cause and the effect and leaves no further room for karmic action. Do you think Buddha achieved that state? Yeah, he said, I have no more future lifetimes. Now, if he was a 6th rounder, you would think, well, that goes without saying. But once you step into the river Lethe, once you come into this realm with a physical form and you agree to descend to this state of evolutionary reality, you're part and parcel of it. You're taking on the karma of it. And there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that he was going to be able to come into the circumstances necessarily that would have allowed him to sit and meditate and become self-aware to a point he realized his true nature, to a point where he was able to come into full enlightenment and see all his past incarnations and resolve it, to a point where that adamantine will would be able to go into practical application and gift out teachings to the world and make all Asia mild. There is no guarantee. That's risk. That's putting it. It's really putting it all on the line. You know, imagine, you know, we build up a little fortune and we think, well, we can't sacrifice a penny, you know, can't miss a beat. We can't, you know, give too much, or, you know, we're going to lose everything. It's really amazing. Shanti, patience sweet, that naught can ruffle. That's a constant endeavor, isn't it? Viraga, indifference to pleasure and to pain, illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. So we've been talking about Patanjali and meditation and perception, and that level of insight, it would seem, demands a deep degree of non-attachment and discernment. And the word indifference, you know, that spoken earlier, you know, the blasting of the elephant's roar, you know, lion's roar, elephants, the big noises of previous eons will not unsettle you. You know, the buzzing of a firefly, you know, won't disrupt you. You know, the concentration spoken of, you know, in the Krishna tradition of going through the line with the water balanced and not one drop can fall out under penalty of death, and you walk through whatever your vision of the most tempting distractions in the universe might be, and you get through that walk without one scintilla of a drop falling out of that vessel. That degree of concentration, we can all have access to that. We can develop that. It's part of our heritage from those who've come before us and done it. So you have proof, in a sense. Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth out of the mire of lies terrestrial. Well, dauntless energy sounds like the will, doesn't it? And keeping your eye on the ball, you know, not wavering, willing to know the truth of our own natures with compassion at the heart of it. Again, non-judgment, discerning, releasing, using techniques, breath techniques, concentration techniques, non-attachment techniques, reflection techniques, sangha sharing techniques, reflection on the practice, reflection on the teachings. Some of it seems repetitious. Oh, I read the voice 100 times. I think I did it. No, that's missing the point. The repetition is a constant deepening, constant recognition of the soul, of our true nature. And we can't do that enough. How could you ever do that enough? If we don't do that every day, we're robbing ourselves of our true existence. Dhyana, whose golden gate once open, leads the Narjal towards the realm of Sat, eternal, and its ceaseless contemplation. So now we're getting to a point where words are not helpful. It's a matter of meditating on this. And prajna, certainly, the key to which makes of a man a god, creating him a bodhisattva, son of the dhyanis. So it's powerful medicine. And what comes up in some of the Buddhist understandings is the teaching of non-attachment, overcoming illusion, and the illusion of existence itself being a truth that we need to understand our understanding. That whatever you think you know, it's nothing. Whatever you think you are, again, is nothing. The projection of your reality, in fact, and the universe around you is an illusion. There is no thing of any shape, size, container, thought, purpose, function that has any reality, ultimate reality to it. Absolute abstract space and bare subjectivity beyond the range and reach of human faculties, that points towards the truth of our reality.
Philip?
Yes.
Could we end it at this extremely sublime and shunyata kind of a moment here?
Sure.
We've technically run out of time.
Okay, I was just going to point out the
go ahead, go for it.
Buddhic nature
go for it.
Pointed to the Nirmanakaya, the Buddha of compassion, and the three vestitures that are chosen, and the Nirmanakaya and the ultimate sacrifice of that reality being contrarian in a respect, and that's not the right word particularly, but this path of Mahayana Buddhism, this theosophical path, shows us a evolution that is part and parcel of this whole big picture of nothingness. We swim within.
Sorry for interrupting you. Wonderful. Would you, I think we can run over a little bit. We kind of always do anyway. Is it possible that you would be so kind as to entertain a few questions?
It'd be my pleasure. And I'd love you to join me with whatever insights you might share and as well.
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. Phil, I think it might be important to emphasize in the story of the Buddha, according to most texts, that between the ages of 16, when he was married to Princess Yasodhara, and 29, he was really drowned in the pleasure palace. And it seems that this is allegorically important, that at that age, I know I thought, oh, I'll never grow old,
Yes.
I'll never get sick, I'll die, and then I hit 30, I felt a little differently. But the question I have, when you were talking about cycles, were you talking about 2,500 years since the Buddha, or the 25,000 year precession of the equinox cycle, when 25,000 years ago, Vega was the pole star? Because you did mention a cosmic cycle. So I'm wondering if one cycle is a reflection of the other.
What a wonderful question and insight. Thank you. Uh, it is said to be so that there's a lot more to Siddhartha Gautama's early life and his marriage, and some say he even had a child. And there's influences that created his experience, the reaction to what he saw outside the palace. In terms of the 2,500 year movement of the heavens, I was thinking about that because it's just the Buddha's birthday celebration on the full moon on the 26th of May, and the lighting up of Manas, and that periodic imprint on us has important influence, windows of opportunity, and I think this period we're in now, HBB said it's going to get the dark is going to get much darker and the light's going to get much lighter, right? I think we have an opportunity now to be aware of for tapping into a lot of positive energy of truth. Your 25,000 year cycle, Vega, that's a study in and of itself. How the evolution of our solar system and our interconnectedness with the stars, Pleiades. We've just recently had in the news, right, where these Air Force pilots have footage of inexplicable objects before them in the sky, operating and defying the laws of gravity. So we may be in for some greater insights than we've bargained for as a humanity right now.
Thank you.
Can I ask, at least in the Dalai Lama's form of Buddhism, with Theosophy, do they define the mind pretty much similarly, or is there a major difference?
I don't see when I study it, and I don't consider myself a Buddhist practitioner, so I'm not the deepest student of Buddhism, perhaps, to ask the particulars of. From my insights and hearing the teachers that I've had the honor to meet and work with, I see it very similar to the teachings of Theosophy and the mind. It's application. Theosophy gets pretty deep on all of these elements when you dive into it fully. And you can go into the skandhas, and you can go into the nature of the different levels of mind itself and formulation of imprints, and this study could be a lifetime's endeavor in and of itself. So, but to answer your question, no, I don't see that big a difference. Whenever I've heard, we had the honor to present a Jewel of Light award to His Holiness the Dalai Lama a number of years back, and a Lama who was his right hand, Lama Gyatso, for 15 years. He gave a beautiful talk at our gathering, and I've seen that consistently also with Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings about the mind and the divine nature within us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you tell
I
us
had
about
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a few questions. I wanted to ask if you have any recommendations on books, more about the Buddha. And then the other question I had was, how does Buddha's teachings differ from Krishna's? If you
That's
had anything to say
interesting.
on that.
Again, anything that the Dalai Lama's shared about the meditation, the heart doctrine is a great presentations from him. One thing, and then this Lama Surya Das I've had for years, Buddha is as Buddha does, is beautiful. Another one by Thich Nhat Hanh, Being Peace, is wonderful. He illustrates with story gorgeously tendencies of mind and awareness with humor and poignancy. So I like that approach. He talks about, one man going upstream with his boat, and it was misty, a little foggy, and he looked and he saw another boat coming downstream, and the boat's not veering. He's coming up, and the other boat's not going to the left or right. It's coming right at him, and he's like, well, and then it continues, and he flags it down. Hey, I'm over here. I'm here. And whoa, and the boat comes right into him, smacks up at his hull, dents it, and he has a fit. What are you doing? I was trying to warn you. Why are you going into my boat? What's the matter with you? And it turns out there was no one in the boat. The boat was docked up ahead. It got loose on its own from its mooring and was going downstream. So, it's fun, insightful awarenesses of discernment in our nature, and how when the watcher's off duty, all hell can break loose, I suppose.
I have read Siddhartha, and I'm curious if you or anybody knows how much that is of fiction, or like if that is similar to how his life was.
By Hermann Hesse?
Yes, Hermann Hesse.
Yeah, well,
Siddhartha.
it's known to be a work of fiction, but it's an interesting allegory in that it's a man who does encounter the Buddha, but he takes his own path. But it's like HPB told each of us to take our own path, the path she showed, and to do it our own way. So I think that's an important point.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Philip. That was an amazing presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciate your insights and more questions.
Hi, Philip.
Hey, Maluka, how are you, darling?
Fine, thank you. You, as always, beautiful, inspiring, very much from your heart. I love that. I was wondering that lesson that sometimes we forget to practice when Buddha was decided not to meditate anymore, and there was a boat and somebody was with a string instrument, and then he heard the string that is too tight breaks. And in our life, sometimes we don't have that kind of flexibility. It's like the tree. They talk about the willow or the bamboo tree. No matter how strong the wind is, they remain center and just flexible and they don't break. So can you say something about that?
Yeah, there's a quality of being able to withstand perhaps far more onslaught to our nature than we think we can stand up against or envelop or resolve or have compassion with, acceptance of, loving the reed, as is said, that bends and never breaks. That speaks to our eternal pilgrimage, that inspiring us to know that we've been here before, most likely we'll be here again, and we persevere with the knowledge that yes, we can. And we don't always have the feeling of supreme volition in the moment. But it's something that we can summon collectively at any given time. And that's why Sangha is very helpful, too, that because, we may all have our moments of doubt, if you will. And it's important to review the teachings, meditation, concentration, will, whatever little step we can take, even if we don't feel like a big step's possible, we can always do something, pick up a book and read one line, call one person, reach out, one little thing, it's always possible to breathe and bring the mind, consciousness, awareness into the body with presence. That's an act of will in and of itself, that choice to tune in as the watcher. So yeah, I appreciate that question. It's very true. We get too brittle. We get too demanding of our own progress, even of a spiritual nature, dissatisfied with where we're at. That's just the mind controlling, inhibiting progress of the soul. And the mind, it really is out for our interest in respect to its own hierarchical survival. Because you think about, the mind is doing all of this creation and sustenance thinking and vision and thought, will, feeling, imagination, spirit, these powers of the mind, and orchestrating it all. And the mind thinks it's done all this, right? However, the watcher is the conductor of that orchestra, not the mind. And even the higher mind, Buddhi, that's a union of agreement and relationship. So it's still so universal that it's almost inseparable, right? The spiritual nature, Buddhic, Adibhuta, mind nature, the universal mind. In the individuality, it becomes a different mirrored reflection. And yet, through meditation, concentration, will, we can come to some awareness of that state. So we can supervene the control factor.
Philip, we really very much appreciate you sharing with us the fruits of your meditation, concentration, and will, and your deep insights, and your speaking from the heart. And I'm not very good at ending these things, but this has been a very sublime occasion, and we hope that you'll do an encore sometime. So,
my pleasure. And I hope I didn't speak too long on any particular question there and point, and everyone who has a question got to share. And if there is anybody who has a question, they put through the chat to you, I'm more than willing to address it, through email or whatever other resources available.
gosh, well, thank you very, very much for what you used the word gifting, and that's how I would characterize what you did for us just now. So,
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see everyone.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Jonathan. Thank you for hosting this beautiful series of events.
Yeah, next week we've got. What does Theosophy comes with the study of the path of immortality, which is karma and reincarnation. So we're going to hear a presentation next week on reincarnation and silence. Very enigmatic spin on the idea of reincarnation. So we hope that you will enjoy that.
Look forward to that.
Looking forward to Kurt Volkent, and his presentations are always deeply mindful and thoughtful and provocative. So looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.